Gentlemen, the time has come once again to discuss things.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of Geeky Gentlemen. We are continuing our month of wonder. Our month dedicated to Wonder Woman, where we are reviewing things related to Wonder Woman stories, Wonder Woman comics, I guess you could say. I don't think anyone's picking anything that's not a comic at this point. So there's that. So, if you want to hear a bunch of guys talk about Wonder Woman and female empowerment and stuff, this is the place to be. Yeah.
I'm so excited to mansplain Wonder Woman to everyone. It's going to be great.
That's basically what I'm doing, and I don't care. Okay, so besides, the blatantly sexist, really stupid points that people make about Wonder Woman, I think most of the really bad Wonder Woman takes I've read or seen have come from women, so I don't fucking know. I'm just gonna land on the fact that no one understands this character except me. That's just
the Alfie philosophy when it comes to character.
Just I don't know. I remember reading a review of. Never mind. It'll come in its own time. But anyway, Matt picked our review topic today. What did you choose for us, Matt?
I chose Wonder Woman, the Hiketeia. I'm gonna say is how Hiketeia.
It's the Hiketeia.
The Hiketeia. Fucking yes. Okay. Well, we're reviewing Wonder Woman, the Hiketeia, which is a Greg Rucka penned Wonder Woman story from kind of the early 2000s. It's the famous one where the cover is Wonder Woman's boot crushing Batman's little head like a grape. And I thought this would be kind of a cool one to review because I have read almost no Wonder Woman, so I'm very qualified to talk about her. The Wonder Woman I have read was Greg Rucka's Rebirth run, the first year of that. Mm-hmm. And I like Greg Rucka generally as a writer. I like his Gotham Central stuff a lot. So, I thought, we'll pick a Wonder Woman thing. And I was going to pick his Rebirth run, but it was fucking 12 issues to finish the first story arc. So I was like, fuck that. And so I went with something a little bit shorter, a little bit more digestible. And now that I've read this, having not read it before, and unless Ian is about to destroy it in 12 seconds with his Wonder Woman understanding Chad brain, I would say that this is actually not a bad, if someone came to me and was like, hey, I've never read a Wonder Woman comic, what's a place to start? I don't think this is a bad read to recommend. It's short. I've found it enjoyable. And I'm excited to talk about it.
Well, prepare your butthole.
Oh, yes.
No, I mean, it's fine. I do enjoy this story. I do think it's good. I think it's kind of interesting to do it as that, it's framed very intentionally as a Greek tragedy. And I think that's a smart choice. I think that especially works well introducing Batman into the story to make it a more tragic story. I think a lot of the stuff we get in here is pretty good, maybe a little dated to the time, but overall pretty good. I kind of Rucka's take on Wonder Woman is solid. Definitely more solid than most. I would trust him with the character more than I would some other writers, certainly. But there is like this like taste left in my mouth from like particularly that early 2000s, and I think it is like most of the examples that come to mind, I'm pretty sure, if not damn sure, they're all Rucka of like this run, this era of the character is like really steeped in kind of tryhardism for me. So like it's not that any one thing on its own is like bad or not done well or bothers me, but it's just as you take them all together, it feels like it's just trying a little too hard for me. Because you said it right, like this is the story where it's like the famous image of Wonder Woman stepping on Batman's head. Put that in your femdom and take it. But like, so there's that, and then in this same run, you get the Superman fight, where Wonder Woman beats Superman and kills Max Lord, and in this same run, you get like there's even I don't know what you guys or how you guys read this. I actually have the deluxe edition, which comes with a cover gallery. So in this same run earlier, or maybe later, I can't remember the exact way the issues break down, Wonder Woman gets blinded. She sacrifices her eyes in order to beat Medusa. And so there's a cover of Wonder Woman holding Medusa's head. And then she still stays on the Justice League because they put her through a test and they all fight her, and she beats the entire Justice League blind. And it's just like, there's a lot of that where I'm like, it feels like it's trying really hard to make her cool, which ends up making her a little less cool, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Alfie,
Yeah.
what was your take on the general feel from this story?
I'm largely in agreement with you and Matt, where I think this is a really solid Wonder Woman story. I guess the only thing I would want to add to the conversation at this point is, I think this is one of those stories that is more interesting to me as kind of like the what the creatives around and what the public conception of Wonder Woman was at this time in DC's publication history and like just general pop culture than necessarily as a story itself, because this was a lot of firsts for the character of Wonder Woman after a little bit. Like this is the kind of like the start of like the new era, because this was Greg Rucka's first ever time writing Wonder Woman, and this is how he got the gig of writing it full time as a run. His first run of two started a year after this, and like I read a couple of interviews where he went into basically like his pitch for this was he wanted to do a story that showed why Wonder Woman was deserving of being on the Trinity and what her deal was outside of just the fact that she's the token girl. Like she was the girl. Like why is this character as important or even more important than Batman or Superman, and go into that. Obviously it's a very limited scope of the story, but that's kind of like the mode you go into it looking at. And I think that's really interesting, because if you compare that to just say Superman and Batman at the time, it's like Batman was kind of entering his like sicko mode. Like Batman was just this was the start of where we get into what people now call like Batman just everywhere, where Batman just overexposed. This is where Batman effectively could do no wrong, even when he was doing wrong. Where like even like stuff like Hirsch and everything that would be coming out of this, like we were riding the wave of No Man Land at this point, where we're New Gotham Land, we're past all that, and we're going into this new era of Batman, where effectively anything you throw at the wall is just people just going to eat it up. Whereas with Superman, we're in a literal thing where we kick Grant Morrison and Mark Waid out of DC and let them go over to Marvel, because we don't want any creators on Superman who will rock the boat too much. So that's how we end up with Joe Kelly and Jeff Loeb on Superman at this. Yeah, and just Superman proper at the time, and Action Comics at this time. So, and that's where you get those runs where just again, Superman's in a pretty bad place. Like this is where if Batman's get his reputation for the modern day starts here of just I'm Batman and like all the stigma associated. Right. This is where Superman's pretty boring. It starts like this is
No,
where
man, Superman's been boring since like the 50s.
Yeah, but even then you had the aliens and the lion heads, like, spice it up a little bit. Like, this, you don't have that. Whereas with Wonder Woman, this is kind of, I think, the start of that, where we kind of have the thing you mentioned, Ian, where we start dealing with almost like the inferiority complex of being a Wonder Woman writer / fan, and the character of, yes, it's admirable that they come into this book wanting to prove why Wonder Woman's awesome and why you should give a shit and why this thing is, and I think it does help serve the story, but I also think you can kind of tell the seams already here of it is got that try hard feel about it. There's not necessarily a confidence here that of just like do as I do. There's more of like a no look, like she beats Batman up, like, kind of thing. And I think it's lesser here, but contextually this book is really interesting to me for just like there's a lot of like origin stuff here in terms of how we get to where we are today.
I do think that's interesting. Like, yeah, it's just I feel like this era for her is very much the listen power scalers kind of thing, you know? Like, I can't help I can't help but notice it. And like, I don't know, as a Wonder Woman fan, I've definitely felt that way too, of having to justify her. You know, like when we put her in like DBDC and we write her doing things and keeping pace with people, like we still get comments on occasion like, this doesn't seem like Wonder Woman's that powerful. Like someone made that really cool TV tropes page for our series, and one of the notes in it that like really stood out to me is like, oh, Wonder Woman's usually a powerhouse, but in this series she's been upped way more in order to keep up. I'm like, no, we just give her the same clout that like everyone else usually gets. Like that's the thing, is it's just if you, because of her place in a context of very sexist industry and sexist fan base, it's really hard to just have Wonder Woman be powerful. You are kind of in a position where you're justifying her power, which inherently undermines it. So it's an interesting place, and I can't help but feel like Rucka's aware of, or Rucka is aware of that as this story unfolds. I mean, she not only does she beat Batman, but like it's not even like a fight, right? She just destroys him in this, and like it's interesting to compare it to the Superman fight, because that's just an issue and it's a more brutal fight, but she does clearly win it too. And it's an interesting kind of thing to see someone, you know, putting the power scalers to the floor and stepping on them with their sexy knee-high boots. You know, so it's just, I don't know, there's an interesting historical context to it. But I don't know, the funny thing about it is I'd read stuff from this run from around I'd hop, skipped, and jumped around. I'd never read this until somewhat recently. And I gotta say, like, you know how, like, someone will tell you what a story's about, and you're like, okay, that sounds pretty cool. And then you go read it, and it's not that their description was wrong, but, like, the way they described it made it sound so much cooler. The way that this story was described to me gave me a completely different idea of how it opened. I can't help but feel like the idea I had for the opening would be so much hyper, which is you should like all the stuff of like Batman chasing the girl out of Gotham and like all the Wonder Woman, you know, waxing poetic about everything. No. Fucking throw all of that out. You should just start it with like this girl busting into Wonder Woman's house, breathing heavy, rain, fucking just throws herself on the floor, invokes the right away. Please, please, please protect me. And then Wonder Woman saying, of course I'll protect you from anything. Batman at the door. That's exactly how the shit should have opened. The slow build up to Batman kills it for me because it's just in my head. That would have been so much more hype.
I do totally get that, and I actually I do kind of agree with you on a purely like if you're gonna kick off the story, cut to the meat of the story and like pick it up where the interesting thing is happening. But I do think that opening it the way it does and actually having it to a degree match the structure of an actual Greek tragedy, I think is actually really cool. And while I do agree with you from like a pacing perspective, I think the book ending with the "It was never this cold on Themyscira," seeing the Uranus outside, I think that actually really, I really like the tone that sets, and I like the way it mirrors actual Greek tragedy in structure. It doesn't match everything that would make it like an actual Greek tragedy, but the attempt being there and kind of aping that style, I think is like a really cool sort of subtle choice that, you know, if you know that structure, you'll recognize it. But if you don't know that structure, there's something about it that just gives it a certain tone and a certain feel that I think is really appropriate for like a Wonder Woman story. So I can see both sides of that for sure.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, it's not a fair comparison because it's the thing I imagined in my head. But at the same time, God, that was a hype ass opening in my head, and like it was just explained completely wrong to me. And I thought that would just be like how it started, because that'd be fucking dope.
Well, I mean, I do think the exposition about what the Hiketeia is slows it down a little bit at the beginning.
And I don't know, to a certain degree, you do need that, but at the same time, it's just, I don't know. If I were the editor on this book, I would probably restructure some things, because it feels weird. It feels out of place. It feels like it's giving away it feels like it's giving away the goat. Like,
yeah. Because you kind of, but I mean that's also kind of that's kind of the Greek tragedy structure. Like, I'm at odds about it because like that's sort of the thing. Like, Greek tragedy is supposed to be like, we're going to tell you right now, this is going to end badly. Like, we're going to tell you right up front, this will end in tragedy. No one will end happily. Like, that is a thing in Greek tragedies. A narrator will show up and be like, look, LOL, this is what's about to happen. And it's going to suck for everyone. So, like, I do feel that. I just hate exposition. It's like a thing I hate. Like, I'm just like, let your story unfold, and her invoking the Hiketeia will tell the audience what it is. You don't need to like explain what it is and then have someone invoke it. Like, that will tell us what it is. But again, in keeping with that Greek tragedy structure of foreshadowing what you're about to see and sort of setting that tone and being like, this is what you're in for, I hope you're ready for it, I do like that. So I'm of two minds about it.
That's fair. There's a lot of stuff I do like about this. I think what's her name? I feel so bad.
Willis, the girl?
Yeah, Willis?
Willis is her last name. I think her first name's like Danielle or something.
Yeah, Daniela.
Yeah, okay. Like, I like the backstory that she has. I particularly like the way that like, it's left kind of vague. We see her commit a murder before we see why, and we trust that there's probably a reason, because she doesn't look like, you know, kill happy about it and stuff. But I really like the scene she has with Wonder Woman talking about why she did what she did, and like, she understood Greek mythology. Like, Wonder Woman was her hero, and so she got really into it. It's like, and I had to do it because it's the law, the Furies and everything. And Wonder Woman just saying it was the law 3,000 years ago. Like, just there's a tragedy in that moment. Like, that's the rest of the book, you almost don't need at that point. Like, that's just the saddest part of the book for me. Like, even her death doesn't feel as sad as that moment to me. That was
I just like
really, really
I just like the idea that someone comes to Gotham with fucking stars in their eyes. It's just like, oh, I'm gonna come to Gotham City and I'm gonna fucking make it. I'm just like, oh, I could have told you how that was gonna go.
I think that's also kind of like, I think there's two things to that, right? It's like, yeah, we the audience know that's ridiculous because all we ever see is the bad thing.
Yeah.
But then you also got to keep in mind like how many successful like actresses and models does Bruce Wayne hang out with like every single issue? Like there's like Gotham is like you are the poorest of the poor with the richest of the rich. So like it kind of does make sense to me that people would think, oh yeah, but I'll be different. I'll be the next Julie Madison or something like that. Like they think that's yeah. To let it be corrupt, you kind of have to have at least some people make it because that's kind of what like. But that's like what's the disparity is. So I can kind of buy that in like Metropolis. No one goes there to get famous. Like Metropolis is just like, well, yeah, you can get like a good rent in Metropolis, but it's kind of tame. Gotham's where all the action is. Like I could just see that kind of shit happening all the time.
Sure.
Mm-hmm. No, it's good stuff. I really do like a lot of what's going on in this book, but again, there's parts of me that it is very of the time. Especially some of the art, like who's the artist on this? J.G. Jones. Like I think he's a talented artist certainly, but like some of the ways in which he draws things, and I think this is pretty typical for comic books, like the whole scene with the sister character and how she is shown to be like a victim of sexual assault and stuff. But I mean, it's a tough balance certainly because she's being, forced into porn and stuff. But at the same time, I feel like the way the shots are done of her go too far into just your pretty typical, like, very sexualized comic book kind of art for women. And I can't help but feel that kind of undermines some of the emotion of the backstory here. It's a hard balance to strike, though.
Yeah, I mean, the art. Nothing in the art really like jumps out to me. It is like like looking at the art, I was like, this is just like the most typical like early 2000s comic book art I've ever seen.
Yeah, it's house styles and stuff.
Yeah. I get what you're saying. There are a couple shots where she's like in the like lingerie, and you can see them like looking at the monitor and stuff. I will say though, I think it's really only like a couple panels. I don't think it's too bad, but I do see what you're saying.
Well, it's not just that. Like, there's the way Wonder Woman is drawn is always something I pay attention to, because it can really tell me like a lot about the people working on the book and what their sensibilities are. And just like when she comes out the door of the embassy and sees Daniela on the floor begging, it's just, tanked up, she's very busty, like just a lot of very, very model-esque poses. And I don't know, it's a complicated thing to do, because Diana's supposed to be like, the beauty of Aphrodite and everything too going for her. So she's definitely supposed to look beautiful, but there's a time and the place, there's a way to do it, and sometimes stuff like this, it's not the most gratuitous I've ever seen, certainly. And I don't even think it necessarily goes to being gratuitous, but it isn't what it doesn't quite do what I'd prefer. And I guess I have trouble describing what that is. Alfie, you're a little bit more artistically inclined. What are your thoughts on some of the art, and particularly the way the women are drawn in this?
I definitely felt that to an extent. I wonder how much of that is just the general stylization going into the art that would be serviceable in like an action story, but necessarily for something dealing with the implications of sexual assault maybe isn't your best pick. Because again, I think just artists just drawing busty women is is just that's how it be, and like just how poses do. When you draw the line of action, most characters do tend to like even Bugs Bunny when he is posed has more of like a model-esque pose, right? Like it's like that's just how you make dynamic standing figures. You do kind of slant them a little bit. So I think some of that might be a little bit overplayed in my opinion. I didn't really think it was too distracting. There were definitely stuff I think in the script which you didn't need. Like I didn't think Diana needed to change outfits this much and like have so many scenes of like what apparently I don't know how this was written in terms of if they did it like Marvel style with like loose descriptions or something, but I imagine Greg Rucka is the type of writer who's very like panel descriptor, so I would more so put that on him than Jones in my opinion, because I think that would just be Jones's style. You see how he draws Wonder Woman, you know if they want them on the book or not, and how the character should be posed. I don't think that's necessarily a fair critique. On the art though, I will say something that probably would have helped this book out, kind of hit a little bit more, and I think get the vibe that it's going for, but would match the prose of the book. Is I think the thing that stands out the most about this book is the cover, and I feel like an Alex Ross style take on this would have been a lot better. Like you know how like Superman Peace on Earth, like this book gives me that vibe, that if it is dealing with such serious subject matter, you kind of want to be able to imagine it in like that pseudo-realistic style where like what Alex Ross Wonder Woman in this situation.
You know,
with the
I'm not
like
entirely certain that this isn't an Alex Ross cover, I'll tell you that. I think this is I think J.G. Jones did the cover too.
Yeah, and it's just colored by a different colorist that gives it that effect. Or maybe he colored it. Yeah. So like again, not necessarily artist, but like Alex Ross is the best point of comparison because again, like the piece of Earth book that came out recently to this time, like the Batman one that I forget, War on Crime, like that type of vibe for Wonder Woman. I think she did get one, but it wasn't that memorable because this is talked about more. I think this kind of story might have been a better fit for Wonder Woman dealing with something like that. It's like Superman deals with world hunger, Batman deals with gun crime, and then Wonder Woman has to deal with the victims of sexual assault and like sexual trafficking and all that. I think would have fit that imprint a little bit more and would have given it that, especially with the Enryans and like how they're portrayed, right? Is like they're meant to be like these like beyond mythic things, like these entities almost that you can't fight, that have this almost like reality power of like when the contract is broken, you're just doomed. Like there's nothing you can do no matter who you are. Even Wonder Woman would be helpless. Obviously she says she'll still fight because she's Wonder Woman, she never gives up, but like it's that vibe that if they wanted her dead, she'd be dead. I feel like an Alex, like a different kind of art style would have got that threat across more, because they're just kind of standing around and they're meant to be creepy, but like they're not like shadowed or anything. Like they just like kind of look like generic villains. Like they don't have that kind of cosmic importance and weight that I think would, if you really sold that a little bit more, I think the threat of this would have been better and being able to sit with it. And I think again, my biggest problem with this book is I think there's wasted potential here of actually doing a proper Wonder Woman Batman fight.
It's really short.
Not even just that, I'm just talking about like how cooler would it be if like they have that conversation on the roof and Diana's just like, Bruce, I'm not letting you take her, and then Bruce is just like, okay then, I'll see you tomorrow. Like he just leave, like on that kind of, you know, Dark Knight Returns where they have that conversation with Clark and Bruce in the field. But like they put Superman at that, they just like they know where they stand, they know what's coming, and then Bruce is like, all right, let me get my gear. But like Bruce, and then like you have a thing where like Wonder Woman now has to deal with not a Batman who's trying to beat her in a fight, because like there's no kryptonite or anything that Batman could use to defeat. That's not Batman's win condition here. Batman's win condition is taking this girl from Wonder Woman, which is something you can feasibly buy Batman being competent to pull off if he keeps figuring out and trying hard enough. Like Diana can't be there all the time. Like you could get a really kind of like almost Jaws horror movie feel of like Wonder Woman having to like watch her back when she's fighting other people because Batman's about to show up and she's got to then deal with that. But like, and every time she thinks she has to get to him, he's like gone and like planted something out, and like it becomes this game of cat and mouse almost, rather than like Bruce shows up, gets the fuck beaten out of him, Bruce shows up again, tries a plan, which is stupid and doesn't work. So it just makes I'm a lot of people I think have a problem in this book with like the characterization of Batman being so like hardlined, and I think this was just standard of Batman of this era. But I also think
it makes Batman look kind of stupid.
Yeah, I don't mind it though when like it's a Wonder Woman story. Batman is the antagonist. Like, I don't mind Batman in this case is like, all right, we need a mythic figure of vengeance. Who best fits that? Batman. All right, he's the villain in the story. We can twist him just a little bit. He's still recognizable, but what would Batman look like as a Wonder Woman villain? Like, it's the same reason why I don't have much of a problem with like Dark Knight Returns. What would Superman look like as a Batman? But like, it's not his story. It's not Batman's story. It's fine. But I'm like, all right, so you've got me there. Let's just ride that wave. Like, that would be so cool if this was like just like give it a couple more issues, and it's just how the hell does Diana stop Batman from taking a person? Like, how does she can beat him in a straight up fight, but like this isn't about a straight up fight. I think is your hook. That's how you make that Wonder Woman versus Batman conflict interesting. Is you have vengeance versus love. Like they're both are seeking justice, but Diana wants to take care and nurture, whereas Bruce is very much in that punishment mode. And I think there's something really integral to this that we get a little bit of. But I also think like Rucka isn't as interested in telling that story as he is telling in this Greek tragedy, and I just don't think that's as interesting as Batman versus Wonder Woman for the soul of this young girl. Like, I think that's like a book premise that we kind of waste here.
I love how like Alfie's notes on like anything are just fucking go harder.
Yeah, pretty much, right?
I mean, I totally get where you're coming from. Coming into this not really having the context of general DC at the time, because I'm not
general
as
DC.
well read.
You will kneel before General DC.
I'm not as like well read as the overall about the overall history. I mean, I know that like Bruce Wayne Fugitive, I think, was going on at about this time.
Maybe.
I think. And like, so going into this without really knowing the historical context like you guys do, I see what you're saying, Alfie. I actually kind of liked that the fight wasn't like a huge part of the story, because to me, I felt like the cover with her boot on Batman's heel. I'm just like, okay, so I'm about to read this book where boot on Batman's head. I can't talk. I'm about to read this story where Wonder Woman and Batman are gonna fight each other, and then it turns out like no, actually, what I enjoyed most about this story was just kind of getting to know Wonder Woman a little bit more through Danielle's eyes, and the fight with Batman is a part of the story, but that's not the focus here. The focus is just to me, coming in not without a lot of context as a relative newbie to Wonder Woman, I actually liked that the fight was not the huge big focus on it, because I felt like I just got a lot of time to get to know Wonder Woman, and seeing Diana kind of go about her day and really flesh out like Wonder Woman's life as a public figure, I thought that was actually really interesting. And seeing like all the stuff she goes around and does with Danielle, I really enjoyed a lot of that stuff, because that's stuff that I haven't really ever gotten to read in Wonder Woman.
You should definitely go read Wonder Woman 170 from this same volume.
Yeah, and I probably will, because I did like this a lot. And so I liked seeing a lot of that. And so to me, just her going about her day, and every time Danielle tries to tell her, she just says, no, don't. I've made an oath. I don't care. And I'm like, I really liked a lot of that. And so like when you get to the end, Batman just sort of shows up again, and like Wonder Woman like beats him back, and he's just like, all right, I'm gonna go run at Danielle again, and then Wonder Woman just punches him again. And I'm just like, what did you think was going to happen?
Let me ask you this, because back to Alfie's point a little bit of the way that Batman is written as a Wonder Woman villain here, which I do think that's a really good assessment of it, Alfie. I still really like that Batman's pretty in character, because he tries like what I think is a pretty Batman fucking move to put Wonder Woman in an impossible situation by trying to get her to take him in as well. Like, this is just a fucking great Batman move. Like, that's so classic for him too.
I like that too, because he's like, she's like, if I had taken you, like I still would have protected her. And he's like, well, yes, but you wouldn't have been fighting me anymore. And so he's like, I could have then very easily gotten her away. And so I'm like, yeah, I do think he does try to make a play to get into a situation where he can just leave with her. So I do think that is clever, and I do like the way that they set up that like the ritual can be abused. They set that up in that prelude, so then she just kind of tells him to fuck off. So I do like all that, and honestly, I kind of like that the book is not just about that, but I totally get where you're coming from as well, Alfie. I do think that is definitely could have been also a very interesting way to approach this.
And I think a lot of that, Matt, is just me projecting, right? Is like that's clearly not what Rooker was wanting the story to be about. Like that, he very much wants you to focus on Diana and her relationship with this woman who just needs help, and how Diana, even more so than any other hero, does not need a. It's funny, Ian, like we had a comment about this very recently about like, oh, why would Wonder Woman trust someone? Like, it's like, you don't get it. Like, she is the character of trust, like even more so than Superman, and like Superman will trust anyone. Diana will literally love you and treat you as if you are her own newborn baby. Like everyone takes the same treatment under Diana when she's written properly, and I think that is the strength of this book, and that's what Rooker's really trying to put you through. It's just like this gal who has nothing to give to Wonder Woman, nothing to earn. Like she comes just asking for help, and she desperately tries to do this ritual. And Diana even says like, even if you hadn't said the oath, she'd have treated her just the same way. The oath is just kind of an excuse at that point. It's just like, well, I'll play along, but like, if you just come to Diana in the middle of the brain and begged for like how she would have done it no matter what you'd have done. And I think that's a really great strength of why the character is important, why the character is this rare figure of kind of unconditional love in an increasingly cynical media world where that's incredibly rare and like is portrayed as naive. Wonder Woman, she's done right, is unconditional love is portrayed as wise, as it should be. And I think that's clearly what the strength is. I'm just projecting because I'm thinking about how hype that would be. Like that's just me going for like what I would write in this situation. And just again, if I had longer time and stuff, which is obviously DC probably wanted them to keep this something short because Wonder Woman stuff it still doesn't sell that well even after a movie. So like, this was never going to break the bank or anything. So I can understand the restrictions and stuff they probably had on this to keep it as short as possible. I just do feel there is a better version of this story that probably Rooker had in his head if you were to give it like 3 more issues and be able to have a bit more of that back and forth while also getting to see more of Danielle and learn more about her and how Wonder Woman interact and everything. And that would have that made that ending where she dies so tragically. It still does hit. I think it still does land those beats. It's not hollow or anything, but I think it would just hit that a little bit harder if you really got to know this girl outside of just her sister and what she wanted and like how Diana's reaction with her and everything. I think would have been a really not necessarily a better story, but just like a different story that I would have also liked to read. Is probably how I should phrase that.
For sure. I just think having really not been exposed to what I would call like a really, really super solid take on the character before, at least in comic form. I don't know that I can really judge how well she's handled in like the Justice League cartoon and stuff like that. I think seeing that side of Wonder Woman kind of hit me harder than really any of my cares in her fight with Batman, which is part of why I think this, again, I would still say, I think if someone asked me what's a good Wonder Woman story, I've never read the character, like I would maybe point them in this direction because I think this does nail that in a way that I've not read because I'm not super well read on Wonder Woman. So it was very cool to see that what felt like a true like legit good take on the character that I feel like I maybe haven't really seen in it put in such a solid simple story.
No, I definitely agree with you there. This is very digestible. This is it gets you the character. It takes away, like, I mean, it doesn't strike like it doesn't check every box for me for Wonder Woman. It is intentionally short. It is intentionally for the masses. One of my problems with Rucker's take on Wonder Woman is he's really, really sensitive, almost like afraid of going into the sexual nature of the character, to the point where like I can't remember who the artist was for the early work on the it wasn't Sharp, because Sharp and Rucka got along really well. In Rebirth, Rucka came back and he was doing 2 different arcs at the same time. One issue was a flashback arc for the Year 1 stuff. One issue was the Lies storyline. And so you were switching artists, and I cannot remember the name of the artist on the Lies.
Oh, yeah.
But I remember the fact that like a big thing came up about this because Rucka really got in like headbutting, like really public spats with the artist on the book, because he felt the artist was sexualizing Diana too much. And there was like one really famous thing where you could see the original artists like inks and pencils of Diana in a pose, and this is with the Rebirth costume, so it's got like the skirt, and one of the skirt's spats is flung back a little bit, and you can see like the panty line basically, or the hemline of the undergarments from it. And Rucka got in a real public spat. He's like, no, get rid of that. It's too much. It's showing too much. It's sexualizing her too much. Like it kind of blew up. It was a little mini drama, and so the artist ended up walking away from the book pretty shortly after that. And this seems to be very much the same way. There's very little, like the artist here. I complained a little bit about like sexualizers are a little too much, but I think that's just general sexualization of women in comics.
Well, yeah, I don't think that the people who their job is to draw like super attractive, amazing, awesome characters are necessarily always going to be the most well equipped to handle something as delicate as, okay, now portray a sexual assault.
Yeah, exactly. But like, so Rucka almost seems like afraid of the sexual nature to Wonder Woman, because it's not just a book about women's empowerment, but it's a book about sex positivity. Or she's a character about sex positivity and being very open to things like that. So he seems very afraid of that, to the point where like I almost feel like he and the artist on this were maybe at heads, because again, this Batman cover is fucking iconic, but it is the most femdom looking fucking image in the world. Like, just god damn, that's like a very sexually charged image, I feel. There's other ways to show Batman getting beat up than this, but I don't know. Rucka had to have written the scene of steps on his head, so maybe I'm not giving Rucka enough credit, but I don't know. Like I think that is one of his weaknesses as a Wonder Woman writer. He ticks a lot of boxes for me, but that's probably one of his weaker points. And there's not really time necessarily, especially in a story about sexual assault, to go into the kink side of Wonder Woman necessarily. But it would have been interesting to see that more ingrained, that more dealt with, particularly because there's this sense of junkie whore prostitute kind of thing. Wonder Woman would very, like Batman, especially of this time, would judge someone like that pretty harshly. I would not be surprised if you showed me a Batman comic from this era where he says, just another junkie dead, or something like that. Just another
Something Rorschach would say.
Yeah, some Rorschach, like right-wing shit. Just another dead hooker. Another girl came here to get famous, couldn't cut it. Like some shit like that. So Wonder Woman would be one of the characters much more open and much more understanding, much more like, yes, Man's World is horrible how it victimizes the youth like this. So it's a little disappointing we don't necessarily get into that, but I do think it's a really good backstory and a really good reveal moment. I love where it's placed, and again, the saddest part about it is, yeah, of course you'd want to kill the people that did this to your sister. But that was 3,000 years ago where you were allowed to kill the people that did this to your sister. It's an interesting choice, if nothing else.
Yeah, I mean, at least it manages to be a conflict where you can make an argument for either side, and I think that's it's good in making both characters feel like there's a legit, because that's sometimes the problem with any story that involves a superhero fight, is contriving a reason for them to be fighting.
Mm-hmm.
And this book handles that really well, and it also gives you like, you know, it's not like the deepest thing in the world, but it is a moral kind of quandary that I think different people can come up with, like, well, yeah, she absolutely, those people deserve to die, or like, no, you know, obviously it's always wrong to kill, whatever. There's enough of a wrinkle to Danielle's story that, you know, I think a reader really can look at this, come away, you know, like, what would they do given the opportunity to do that? And it just really, it makes it feel less contrived when they fight, which is a big problem with a lot of like superhero fight stories, and it makes Danielle's death feel more tragic. So I mean, it does. I'm glad that there's at least a legitimate sort of moral quandary there, even if it's not like the deepest thing in the world.
How do you guys feel about the ending with Danielle basically committing suicide because she sees no other way out of the situation?
It's always tricky in superhero comics, particularly as a form of fiction, where suicide is the solution to the problem.
Mm-hmm.
That's always a tough nut to crack, because like, especially if you're going with, like, this is meant to be a Greek tragedy, like, yeah, okay, like, she has agency, she made this decision herself because she didn't want the whatever was going to happen to Wonder Woman and Batman if this went sideways and then something went wrong, and she didn't want to just be this burden to Diana. This was her choice. She wasn't all of that thing. You got that on the flip side. Like, now she finally has agency and now she saves her hero. Like, that's what the intention I want to give Rucka. I don't think he's trying to do this mean spiritedly. I think he's meant to do this as a very tragic but like kind of, I'll remember you for as like a hero kind of thing. Like, you made a self-sacrifice is what it meant to be. At the same time, it is a Wonder Woman comic where she can't save the victim who begs at her doorstep and is ineffectual and isn't able to right the wrong and to show a better way, and is kind of just left alone with that. And that is probably the only thing that does make me a little bit not hesitant, because I would still say this is a good introduction to the character, because just from Matt's reaction, I think you're proving to be the case example of what Rucka probably wanted this to serve as, is the reaction you're having to it, where it makes you want to read more. Mm-hmm. It also isn't like a perfect, like, enthusiastic getaway, because we have enough stories of Wonder Woman being ineffective and not being able to solve the problem. Like, as much as this story, and that's kind of a problem that Rucka tends to have, is as much as Rucka is the try-hard, like, no, look how badass Wonder Woman is, look what she could do, at the same time, you can see a direct line between the ending of this and the Maxwell Lord next snap. Like, you can see, like, putting Diana in impossible situations I think the intent is to show how strong she is and how vulnerable she is, and that she's not one note, that she can fail, that she can have these feelings of doubt and loss, that she's not just a morally perfect woman who can do no wrong. Like, she's fallible, she can fall, kind of thing. It's what the intention is meant to be there, but what it comes across as is just like Wonder Woman's full of shit. Like, she's not, like, Wonder Woman isn't the like this. This should be in if this really wanted to hit harder. I think this should be Wonder Woman's version of the Superman saving the suicidal gal on the roof scene, like thing, where like if you really think about it too long, then like a hole on a roof isn't going to solve this girl's issues. But like that moment it's not about that. It's just knowing someone's there to help you. And I feel like almost what Ian said, where like you could end it after that was 3,000 years ago and we don't know what happened to this girl, but you can imagine a nicer ending for her than this. I feel like it comes across in a way where it's like we have faith in the character, but we don't have enough faith in her to show her unapologetically. There always has to be like the caveat of like Wonder Woman is the best of us and Wonder Woman's awesome and Wonder Woman's loving and she will take care of everything. But like that's not realistic, is it, guys? So here's the tragic ending. You're not committing to the idea fully, are you? Like there's still some like kind of doubt.
And it's oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
No, that's I was basically doing my point. I was rambling at that point.
Well, it's funny to me too because he sets up this like kind of no-win impossible scenario like purposefully, but like how many stories have we put Batman in a no-win scenario and he finds a way to win?
Yeah.
And he gets out of it. And it's like that's the kind of story that happens so much for Batman that we take it for granted, but here we don't get that. And I think actually, when I first read it, because I think a lot, I think you can kind of tell a lot when you're reading something for the first time. When I first read it, I mean, it to me it came out of like not out of nowhere, but it's like they're talking. Danielle says no, and then she like commits suicide in the span of like a page. And it's so fast, it's so sudden. And I think to your point earlier, Alfie, if the story had been allowed to be longer and we saw this like ongoing like day after day, week after week, Batman and Diana fought each other and it pulled both of them away from doing the things that they needed to do to help other people, and Danielle kind of saw that happening, that would almost make her choosing to end it this way feel more natural, because you would have actually kind of seen her dragging them down in a sense, or at least that would have been how she viewed it. So like prolonging the battle between Wonder Woman and Batman over the course of another issue or two could have made it feel more natural. But if you're going to do that, at that point, a story that length, you probably would have figured out a different way for that all to play out. So, I mean, ultimately, yes, I think it's necessary for the Greek tragedy structure that he's trying to enforce, but I do think it comes a little out of left field. I mean, again, you do know from the prelude that it's going to end badly, so you can kind of guess that she's not going to make it out alive. But just pacing-wise, it does kind of just happen. But I mean, maybe that's part of the point. Maybe it is supposed to shock you in a way. But I feel like I didn't get inside Danielle's head enough to really make this make a ton of sense, unless you want to think that the Uranese, or however you pronounce that, are in some way influencing this decision, because that's almost what it looks like.
I mean, it's weird too, because there's like a vagueness at the beginning of the story when the oath is first spoken and stuff, and Wonder Woman's like, oh, so they're here for you. And Danielle looks out the window and sees nothing. Wonder Woman's like, never mind. I'm like, well, okay, so then they're after Wonder Woman.
Mm-hmm.
Then, like, why is it that Danielle seems to be the one directly running away from them at the end, you know? Like, that's the crazy part, is, like, it feels like they should almost be... It should be flopped that Danielle keeps seeing them and Wonder Woman doesn't. That's kind of the crazy part.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Especially because, like, the reason that she's able to commit suicide is, like, as far as art on the page shows, maybe this wasn't in the script, I don't know, because it feels kind of wonky. They're physically, holding Wonder Woman and Batman back from saving this girl. And, like, that's a weird choice, which, I don't know, if it's her fate to commit suicide, then I guess that makes sense, but it's a weird visualization, you know? Meh, I don't know. I'm conflicted on it. There's things I really, really love about the story. There's things I really, really enjoy about what it does. I do think it is a little of its time. Back when I was first getting into comics, back when I was first getting into Wonder Woman, and I read the Superman fight, and was like, yeah, this is fucking great. I probably would have liked this a lot more than I do now, but I do still really enjoy it. It's just, I see the flaws a little bit easier, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a good thing, because again, we there's like something to be said about like being able to acknowledge something's of its time and being able to acknowledge the flaws in it doesn't mean you can't enjoy it, and doesn't take it away. It just means like being honest about the work and kind of like, because this is kind of heralded as like one of the best Wonder Woman stories, and I do think that says more about the quality we accept of Wonder Woman stories than necessarily this book's objective quality. Because like, if this was a Superman story, like this would be a good like one-shot Superman story, but it's not breaking the top 10 Superman stories. But because Diana's kind of been robbed of having so many like great like pick up short like one-off stories that you can pick up and binge that are of good quality, it is kind of slimmer picking. So like there is this bigger reputation where like people will describe it bigger than it actually is, and I don't think that's its fault. But I do think the importance of kind of like admitting like where hurdles might have been or where we might have done things differently is important, so that we don't ever like, we don't set Wonder Woman's glass ceiling as a character, right? Like we don't like she can be a lot better. This is good, but that's still like we shouldn't settle. Like let's keep going higher. Let's keep talking about what could be better and what could be good and where we can go things forward. Because this is like, I would like this to be like the quality we expect from like the ongoing Wonder Woman comic on a regular basis. I think is like a decent benchmark for just like the standard. And the fact that we don't even get that consistently is kind of like, come on, guys. So like, I think you've got a very good point there, but like this is very much of its time, and I wish we were in a place now with the character where this had like a bit more of like a, all right, let's go to the races, because I do like a lot of the Greg Rucka's run that comes after this more than this. I think he did his part, but kind of no one else did, which is a bit of a shame. But like, you know, I did enjoy getting a chance to read this again, and I'm very glad that Matt, you checked this out and came away with a little bit more appreciation with the Diana, because like that's always awesome. So it did its job.
Yeah, I mean, I stand by if someone came to me and was like, I've never read a Wonder Woman, I would say like, you know, this is not a bad place to start, because this gets you an understanding of the character. It's not just a retelling of her origin story, because that's what I don't like about the Rebirth Greg Rucka run, because I picked that up because I was like, all right, I'm gonna read Wonder Woman, and I was like, I'm enjoying this, but like I also like Wonder Woman. I think
Wonder Woman and Spider-Man.
People. I think
always on the origin.
I think DC underestimates just how much people already know Wonder Woman's origin.
You know, okay, you would think that, but like literally, I remember, this has been a while, but like I remember being in the Geeks for Fun Discord, and people are like, "Oh yeah, daughter of Zeus, daughter of Zeus, daughter of Zeus." I'm like, no, we go with the Clay origin, and then they go, "The what?" And I'm like, ah.
But like I picked this up and I'm just like, okay, so she's got a Themyscira embassy and she's just Wonder Woman, great. And then here's a story where you like get to know the character. And I think you bring up a good point, Alfie, about like Wonder Woman hasn't had that many like, oh, you know, go pick up Batman Year One, oh, go read All-Star Superman. Like she doesn't have that many of those. So like this is like one of the only ones people point to and are just like, oh yeah, go read the Hiketeia. But in reality, it's a very small scale story, because that's like what a lot of Greek tragedies are. Like a lot of Greek tragedies are just small stories that just take place over a short period of time with a handful of people, and it's sad and tragedy happens. So I feel like part of the problem, at least, is that like this book has become bigger than what it actually is in the public consciousness, which I certainly hope hasn't led anyone to like read it and then get disappointed that it's not a little bit, because I was surprised how short it was, because I had no I read this online, so like if had I picked up a physical copy and been like, oh, this is pretty short, but like I read it online, so I was just reading it and I was just like, oh, it's over now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I got the listed just on my Amazon wish list. I'd been one of those books like I'd want to get into eventually. I saw the DC put out a new printing, the deluxe edition. It's the story and J.G. Jones's cover gallery, which is cool because then you get the awesome Joker cover where he's got the bracelets and the tiara on and he's blocking bullets, so that's fun. But Wonder Woman and Joker have good, like, Wonder Woman has been very good to Joker and just like cool things for the Joker to do, because there's a famous Wonder Woman cover where she's Jokerized, and there's another Wonder Woman storyline from Volume 2 where it's called Gods of Gotham, and the Gotham villains get possessed by the sons of Ares, and Joker's got fucking Medusa hair, and it's awesome. Anyway, so like it's the deluxe edition. It's really just the 2 or 3 issues, whatever it is, and then a bunch of covers in the back of J.G. Jones's covers. So I mean, I don't. How much did this cost? Does it got the price in the back? No, that's how. Oh wait, no, there we go. This was a $30 book at one point. No fucking way. Do not buy the deluxe edition for full retail price. It's not worth that. But it's like, it's pretty good. It's a hardcover, but like $30 for a 3-issue story? Hell no. Get the fuck out of here. Give me a fucking interview with Greg Rucka in the back or something. Goddamn. So yeah, there's that. Sorry, tangents galore. Here on Geeky Gentlemen, we embrace the tangent. I haven't used that one in like 7 years. I don't know. Anyone got anything else?
I guess I just want to ask, in general, what do you guys think of Diana's just general characterization in this? Because I think that would be a cool... Because we talked about this a little bit last time, and I think that would be like a cool running thread to kind of unify all these reviews of just like how Diana's portrayed and written, and how's her voice.
Again, this is Greg Rucka is one of the people I trust more with the character. Like if I'd heard that Greg Rucka was on one of the movies, I'd be, more inclined for it. What was the recent animated one? Bloodlines. Thank you. Like that's basically adaptations of a lot of Rucka's stuff all crammed into one movie, so it helps. Rucka's got a pretty good understanding of the voice. Like he gets the compassion, he gets the kindness, he gets the intelligence. He doesn't do Murder Princess, for the love of fucking God, thank you. And so that much is very appreciated. Again, it's hard to say because of how short this is. I don't expect it to hit every single box. But I would like to see some more of the it's weird because there's like this whole section of the story, right, where she talks about doing all this crazy Wonder Woman's day-to-day stuff, her role as an ambassador. It feels like that's where you should insert some of that more like wacky kind of things, as opposed to just generic peace talks or whatever that means. It seems like that would be the place to kind of bring something up, because like I said earlier, the story to read, if you just want more of like literally a day in the life of Wonder Woman, is Wonder Woman number 170, which is the issue where she takes Lois Lane around and Lois spends a day with Wonder Woman. And that's like a really, really good issue. And just, I was reading that the other night, it's just like there's a moment where it cuts to Wonder Woman working at a AIDS outreach facility, and she's got a white t-shirt with a little red ribbon on it, and she's talking to 2 gay guys about her love life, and I'm like, yep, that is literally perfect. So I don't know, stuff like that is probably where that could have been inserted and not overburden the story, but I think overall the voice and the characterization is pretty strong here.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that I'm qualified to judge necessarily, but I quite liked how she was characterized and how she was voiced. What I liked is that he manages to write her in a way where she feels compassionate yet very, very strong, very iron-willed at the same time, which is cool to me. Like, I feel like that's kind of a hard balance to strike with the character. And so I actually really liked that a lot. I don't have a lot of experience with Wonder Woman outside of like DC animated universe and like the live action movie. So I can't really speak to how true it is to the character's history or anything like that.
She just doesn't cut off anybody's heads or do any racisms, and I really think that undermines the core of the character.
She doesn't do a rape, so I don't know if it's really Wonder Woman.
Okay, but can I talk about this for a second with Wonder Woman 84? Like, all right, so putting the soul of Steve Trevor in another guy's, like, I didn't even think of this until people started talking about it. And more I'm like, yeah, that is pretty fucked up. Putting the soul of Steve Trevor in some rando's body is like a weird choice from like, okay, well, the stone can only do so much, so I guess it has to like work within certain limitations or whatever. But then like later in the movie, like not even like half an hour later in the movie, like, the stone fucking erects, like, a 50-foot wall out of thin air that's miles long, and it does, like, crazy shit, like, fucking, transport a farm into the middle of nowhere. And I'm like, you couldn't just bring him, why'd you have to put him in someone else's body at that point? This is so absurd.
Oh, yeah, no, if the stone can turn Kristen Wiig into a cheetah, I don't understand why it couldn't have just brought Steve Trevor's body back. Like, I don't get that either. But yeah, no, I liked how she was voiced in this. I just don't have the context that you guys do. Mm-hmm. But again, I'm glad I read this, because this was a character that I felt like I haven't really gotten to properly meet before. And I enjoyed the crud out of her. So I think she was voiced really well. Like I said, I think what I really appreciated was her balance of being just like iron-willed, stand your ground, but also having that care and that compassion, and just the balance between those two things, I thought was what really made her stand out as a character here. So
Matt, you're so adorable that you can't say a phrase this episode without saying, well, I'm not really qualified. It's like, you are qualified. We're geeky gentlemen, not geeky gatekeepers. Like, it's fine.
Yeah, but I've never read a Wonder Woman, man.
Well,
like,
your voice is still just as good because you still get it, so it's fine. You've read less bad Wonder Woman than us, so technically you have a better about you. Oh, but yeah.
That's fair. That's fair.
But yeah, no, I very much like it as well. In terms of just like specifics, I like when Wonder Woman not going full Stanley Kirby 4, but like her vocab I like being a little bit more I guess just sophisticated, like not even sophisticated, but just like a little bit more old-timey, like a little bit more grand and operatic, a little bit more kind of like, again, like as if she is speaking in a Greek tragedy when everyone else around her isn't. Like I think that gives her a presence. I think that gives her a different kind of like vibe than the other Justice Leaguers and the other DC heroes. It's like she if you get her voice right, she should feel like she just knows shit that the other leaguers wouldn't even fathom, kind of thing, and she just says it casually and with such confidence. I think I very much prefer that take on Diana. The problem with that is that can very easily slip into me warrior Xena fight, like if you don't do it right, like you can very easily like dumb her down by making her kind of have that voice, which I think Injustice does. But when it's done well, I think it gives her a regal quality, while also giving her like this almost like angelic voice of like she just knows what to say to calm people down in a way that no one else would talk to them. So I like that about it. I like again that she she has that moment to herself where she asks herself like, what if this was Donna? What if this was Cassie? What would I do? And she doesn't give us an answer. I like that moment. It's like you just kind of let her sit with that as she is, because she doesn't have an answer for that. Again, I like how she immediately gives compassion and care and love to someone. I think that's kind of like the fundamental tenet of Wonder Woman. The more I write her, the more I see Ian write her, the more I just see good stories do it. Is I think in the same way that Batman needs to be able to intimidate a goon, Superman needs to be able to give someone a helping hand or something. Wonder Woman needs to be able to say "I love you" to anyone in the world, and you're on a foundational thing. You don't understand the character completely, but like you get it. Like you get it to an extent. Like that's the tip of the iceberg. But like if you're on there, you're at least on the right fucking iceberg. Like like, so I think Rucker really gets that. The same way Ian said, like better than most people. So I didn't really enjoy this read. Again, stuff I would do differently, stuff I would like to still see. I still think we can do a big Batman Wonder Woman fight later down the line, kind of closer to my idea. I just think the hook for this was basically perfect, and you can't do it again without ripping it off. So that's kind of like a little bit. But there's probably something else you can pull off for it, angle wise. And I like when we do the Greek stuff with Wonder Woman, but it doesn't make her doing just the Greek mythology stuff. Like we don't just get zapped to like an alternative world and like the past or something here. Like we still say where she is doing other shit that isn't just related to the Greek background, but it is brought in. I think that's the way to do it. Is we don't limit to her to just telling Greek mythology stories. Because again, it'd be like if we limited Superman to just telling Krypton stories. Like don't do that. She can do other shit. But like it is nice. It adds a little bit of unique flavor to her that I do think is quite good. So yeah, name aside being impronounceable until you look it up, which I'm still not 100% sure of, but fuck it. I did really enjoy this read.
It's a good book. It's a good book. Okay. Well, I guess that wraps us up pretty much. We'll go ahead and go on to scores. I'll go first. I'll give this 4.5 out of 5 femdom posters.
I will give it. I'll give it 4.5 out of 5. Man, I don't know. That's like the thing to do. I'll give it 4 out of 5. Creepy Uranese or Uranesses. I don't fucking know how that one. I don't know how that one's pronounced. I thought I knew, but then Alfie said it in a way that was different. So now I'm questioning everything.
Intentionally on my part. Soon his mind will break. On my end, I'm gonna go with giving this 4 out of 5 $30 priced editions.
Jesus.
This was a good one. This is a good, not an unquestionable benchmark. Let's keep aiming higher, folks. But it's definitely one worth checking out.
Yep. All right. Well, so Matt, you got a taste for Wonder Woman now. You got a feel for it.
Yeah.
Now we're gonna break that cherry completely.
Excellent.
And we're gonna go hard. We're gonna do all 3 volumes, the trilogy of Wonder Woman Earth One. So that the Earth One books are like about the same length as this a piece. So it's not terrible. We're gonna do Earth One volumes 1, 2, and 3 by Grant Morrison and Yannick Paquette. So that should be an interesting time. The series everybody loves to hate. So yeah, that should be a good old roll in the mud. Until then, everyone, I'm the philosopher.
I am the champion of. Why wasn't I in this story? I could have helped.
And I am the Wonder Woman erotica lover. Yeah, sure. Let's go.
There's a lot of that. You have a wealth to choose from.
Bastard, you're alive.
And we are your geeky gentlemen, and we will be discussing things.
da, 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 da.